Morag from our Permaculture Life and the Permaculture Education Institute, and it's a great pleasure to be here today in Huw's garden. Huw is a YouTuber himself, and so what's your YouTube again? Huw's Nursery.
Huw's Nursery.
Yeah, and Huw is, are you 19 still, or you turned 20?
No, I turned 20 in January.
Oh, did you? Yeah. Right. So Huw is 20 and he's been doing YouTubing for about 7 years, all about gardening, and he's just released his first book, which I believe is called In One Bed?
Veg in One Bed.
Veg in One Bed. And I just find it absolutely phenomenal what you've done and how much you're sharing. And so it's all about growing food, growing really good food, growing a diversity food, and there's something about permaculture woven into what you do as well, I understand.
Yeah, kind of the principles of permaculture are a foundation behind what we do. I think one of the most important things is soil health. And especially, I think in the UK, if people are growing food, I find that there still isn't that interest or the understanding or respect for soil. There's still loads of digging being done, using lots of chemical fertilisers or just fertilisers anyway. But as you can see, we use lots of compost here. We've just topped it up actually with extra compost because we're just getting closer to no dig all the way around. But we use lots of animal manures as well. So we have animals on the small holding or from farms nearby. And we just try and utilise our local resources. And then another thing is, observe and interact is the most important thing. So if you have a garden, you're the best expert of that garden. You know where the light comes, you know the shady parts, you know where the water is, where the wind comes from, and you kind of design something around it which works. And with my YouTube channel, I'm just trying to share people and show how simple it is to grow some foods, and just really wanting to get people into it and kind of get rid of those excuses of, oh, it's too expensive or too much time or not worth it or feeling overwhelmed. And I just want to empower people to feel, hey, I might even grow some potatoes or something in a container.
Yeah, I mean, I've actually watched quite a few of yours, and I love the way that you make it really simple and accessible and doable.
Yeah.
So you must have been gardening for quite some time to already have such an ability to not only know how to do it, but know how to communicate it so clearly. So
trial and error.
Trial and error.
Yeah, that's one thing. Another thing is this is kind of like the family's vegetable garden.
Yep.
And my dad always got me involved. So ever since I was 3, this was actually kind of scrub. So when we first came, we had some pigs and they cleared the area for us, and then we put down the raised beds. And I just had really fond memories of when I was in primary school. And in the morning I'd wake up and we'd soak some beetroot seeds because it will help speed up germination. I couldn't wait to get back home then at the end of the school day and sow them. And I think for kids, it's a very magical feeling seeing a tiny seed turn into something really delicious.
Yeah.
And it also teaches a lot of values like patience and respect, which especially in the British education system, you don't really have that anymore. It's all focused on all the STEM, but nothing about the creative subjects. And being in tune with nature. So I feel there's a real thirst for this. And my main audience segment is 25 to 35, and then 35 to 45, which I really hope they're getting their kids involved and empowering them and stuff.
So you go out and you do workshops and you talk out in the community quite far and wide, I understand. Do you get a chance to go and speak to kids very much?
I do little things with schools, especially my mum's school, to do bits and bobs there.
Excellent. Lucky school.
Yeah, it's hard though, because what I find is, especially, and I know this from first-hand experience, if you try and set up a school garden, usually any school will set up a school garden, but it's usually by one passionate individual.
That's right.
And when they leave, then the whole thing falls apart. So what I'm looking at doing now is to try and find a way where it's almost like spoon feeding the school or the teachers to really help them to know how to look after the garden and how to embed that in the curriculum, because gardening or permaculture is one of the few subjects which can facilitate the teaching of every single subject.
Absolutely.
And so, and also the other thing, I don't know if this is true or not, the stats, but it's like kids learn 10 times more effectively if they're having fun. So for me, it's a no-brainer, but it's trying to find a way to get that across.
Look, I think you're absolutely right. It's one is it's fun, and two is that it's a connected way of learning, because you can learn, like you said, STEM. You can learn arts, you can learn language, you can learn everything through gardening. So you were fascinated about gardening. Were your friends into gardening? Was this something that you kind of did with other people? Or was it just something that was innately in you, that inspired by your parents?
It's probably something you don't stereotypically see a young person into gardening. And of course, like when my friends, when I tell them about my channel, it's quite funny really. But I persevered, and I don't really care about other people's opinions. I just stick to my gut feeling and go for it. But there's never been a better time in society to share what you love. And the great thing about the internet, what I found, is, say for example, maybe there's one person in my village who enjoys gardening, and they might seem a bit weird or different or something, but if you add one person across all the millions of villages across the world, the internet then connects you with them. And so if you like anything like knitting or art or anything, now you can get an audience. And I also find that when a lot of people come together, and what I love about the YouTube community with permaculture and gardening is, I feel the more content that is created, the more likely we are to reach new people and to inspire new people as well.
That's right. And I think, like you were saying before, making it accessible and doable, and the fact that you're walking through your garden, you're actually showing them how to do it. It's there may not be exactly hands-on, but it's as hands-on as you can get, and so it's really great. So what's next for you? Have you got another book coming, I hear? Or got some new gardens? You're going to Shetland? This is some of the things I hear.
It's constant, non-stop. Every year's getting kind of. I think busy is a term used too often in society. It's like busy is almost an excuse to do other things. It's more trying to become more productive. And so doing a new trials garden, which is based at how home growers or people growing on a really small scale can really maximise their productivity, and also testing out different things so we're better with how we treat our soil. So that's going to be really exciting. Working on a new book which will be out in under a year, and it's all about growing food with no money. So that's going to be quite exciting.
So some key tips. Can you point to any key tips out of that?
A big part of that is going to be bartering. It's something we've lost as society. Where 100 years ago, if you wanted something, you're more likely to trade with something else. Maybe like you trade a service for a product. Maybe it's some eggs or whatever. And we've really lost that. It's so linear now with just using money or currency. So I feel bartering is something that we can bring in. But then there's so many other things. One of the key things, like I said before, is looking in your local community, because the amount of resources, when you know where to look, is insane.
Phenomenal. And so I was just down at the Lampeter People's Market, just down the road from you here, and I came across a group of people who were doing the Lampeter Seed Bank, which is a brilliant thing, or seed library actually. So just they would collect the seeds. You come in, you put some in, take some out. It's all free, and it's part of that whole movement. And so you're linked in with the permaculture group here in Lampeter, and that's part of the transition movement, is it? So can you tell us a little bit more about what's happening more broadly in your community and how you link in with that?
Yeah, so firstly, the seed library is something fairly new, and it's great because seeds are becoming more of a trending topic. More people are beginning to realise the importance of seeds, and when you're trying to create a more resilient system, being able to save your own seed is amazing. And there are so many farmers, especially when you look at things like Monsanto and stuff, and farmers who are stuck on just being able to grow F1 hybrids, but they've lost the power. It's more being able to save your own seed keeps that power, and that's really exciting. And I'm also looking at heritage seed varieties. So yesterday I planted some peas called the Llanover pea, and they're a Welsh variety, and hardly anyone grows them, but my plan is to save the seeds and distribute them around the permaculture group. And Lampeter Permaculture Group has around, I think it's about 45 or 50 members. And then every Sunday, every one Sunday a month, you'll go and do some work, have a work day with one of the members, and we do other things as well, like a plant swap or a seed swap, and that's when we get to speak to the public and tell them what we're trying to do. And then another big event is an apple day. So we encourage people to bring their glut of apples and juice them and learn how to make cider and all the exciting varieties.
Yeah. So how many varieties do you know of apples? You must have an enormous amount around here, I can imagine.
Yeah, there are loads. Our orchards, we have about 30 different varieties of apple, and I think about 2/3 of those are Welsh.
Really?
Yeah, and I'm also trying to do something, because we have got some land here, to try and create my own variety of apple from apple seeds. How do you do
that?
So basically, there's some saying which goes, if you plant 10 apple seeds, one of them is going to taste good. If you plant 100, one of them is going to taste fantastic. So I'm going to try and plant either 100 or 200 and then choose the best one. Obviously this is very long term, but the idea is that they've then grown in our soil. And that's something else, is like with the seed library, you're growing things which have come from the soil within your own climate and region. And it's like restoring that data and retaining it for survival of droughts and stuff.
Yeah, brilliant.
Like
also with climate change,
I had to buy in loads of compost as a drastic measure, because last year we were on a spring and we ran out of water for about a month.
Which is really interesting, because there's kind of this concept in UK and particularly in Wales that we just have so much water. We'll never run out. It's kind of the feeling that I've been getting as I've been talking to people.
Yeah, but
water everywhere.
I kind of worry that people still think that after what we experienced last year. Now I have completely stopped saying that, because the weather is becoming more unpredictable, because last year it was a really late start to spring as well. We had the beast from the east in March and ridiculously cold temperatures, and then running out of water and looking at the stats over the months and how water is diminishing. So that's why we've added loads of organic matter to try and retain moisture.
So focus on the soil is a really important thing.
And unfortunately we do actually have a lot of organic matter, so somehow the garden saw it through for a month even without any water, and we're still harvesting leeks and stuff from last year.
Have you ever known your spring to run dry before?
No, it was a first.
Phenomenal.
And it was a bit of a wake-up call, and we have got water storage tanks, but probably the next thing now is, again, trying to look at how we can build resilience, is looking at capturing a lot more and have a much greater water storage. So we might have to, just out of security, look at installing a 10,000 gallon tank or something, just so we know that's there. And
so you
and then we won't.
Australian. We have that amount off the side of our houses, because we have those big dry periods. So that's interesting.
So it's always transitioning, but as I was saying to you before, what I love about permaculture is that it's very flexible and you can take bits of advice. And I love watching people, like permaculture people in Australia or Canada, New Zealand, and I pick up different ideas. And it's really good, because it's a very collaborative approach to growing and thinking, and so that's what we're trying to apply here.
Yeah, great, fantastic. So permaculture, gardening and writing and YouTubing is actually your job as well now, isn't it? I mean, you've turned something that you love and you're passionate about into something that's your livelihood and your future. I mean, this is your direction in life, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's something that I really wanted to do when I was in school and doing here we have GCSEs when you're 16 and then A-levels when you're 18. I was my YouTube channel was growing quite a bit then, and I thought, maybe I'll go for it and see what happens, and haven't looked back, and just really enjoying it. There's nothing better than getting emails or tags or anything from people to say, look, this is what you've helped me do.
Right.
And I just love that.
Yeah.
And so the fact that I can make a living from it, because this is more of a family small scale garden, so I don't make money through selling produce. It's through sharing different ideas and all of the kind of online based things and courses and stuff. So that's how it works for me. And I think, it's great, because when we're looking at food security and we have Brexit coming, don't want to really go into that. But one of the things is food security. And for me, I just want, no matter what you think politically or something, the best food security you can have is your own private greengrocers in your back garden. It's like with us and storing all the food and stuff, we know that we're going to be fine, and we've got all the seeds and everything.
And then as a community, you're helping to show other people how to do that.
Yeah.
You've got seeds, you've got resources, and really trying to help ripple that out. It's not just about hunkering down yourself, is that it's actually about creating a community resilience.
Yeah, and also what goes into that is knowledge as well, and there's a really awesome network of people, especially in this area of Wales, who have so much knowledge about growing food. And like for me, the ability to share knowledge is one of the best qualities about permaculture and gardening, and I also like it because I think 99% of us in the world of permaculture are just wanting to help other people. And you don't get that in many other societies, or not quite societies, but industries, I think. So it's a really friendly thing to be a part of.
I just feel so happy that you are part of it. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
Do you think you might be able to take us for a bit of a wander around? Tell us what you do here.
Yeah, of course. So this is the garden. This is kale. I think kale is one of the. Yeah, of course. I think something I like to say is kale is king, especially for us. Brassicas perform really well, usually, especially if we have a wet summer and a wet winter. And kale has just been producing amazingly. What we do, my sister was up here and she comes and collects the kale shoots to use for like a stir fry or anything. But what we're also doing is we're letting them flower, because this is vital bee forage. Something else that we really believe in is trying to help beneficial insects. So we don't do things like companion planting and such, but what we do is to try and let things flower if we can. Now, of course, we wouldn't be doing this if we were saving the seed, but we've got plenty of brassica seeds, so just letting them flower and stuff. And then here we practice crop rotation, although I'm beginning to be a little less strict with it. It's as long as it isn't in the same place for 2 years in a row. It just saves confusion, because there's so many things to think about.
So can you just go back on the you were talking about companion planting, because it's one of the questions I get a lot too, is like, do you do companion planting? And my gardens are very sort of permaculture, polycultural, subtropical garden, and so it is one big companion. So I'd just be interested to hear your take on.
That's how I feel. There are some things which I might make companion plant, like you've got the typical things like basil and tomatoes, which we'll do in the solar tunnel, and then the other things which we call like the Three Sisters method. But for us, what we're doing is, because it is on a small scale, we're also trying to produce a lot of food here. So we plant things in blocks. Just so it's easier to maintain, and if something fails, we've then got space to put other things in. But yeah, for us, companion planting, being really strict, that's one of the things about being flexible. We're not really going for all of the permaculture principles. We're looking at the ones which really work and which suit us and our needs, because everyone's need and everyone's garden is always very different. So yesterday, you might be wondering what's under these planks. It's a Bill Mollison method.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
I've seen this one before.
Yeah, it's basically parsnips and carrots need moisture for germination, and if they dry out, it can really affect germination rate. So what you do is you plant your parsnips, give them a water, and you put a plank underneath, and it just helps reduce evaporation.
So how long would you leave these planks on?
What then I do is just make sure that they're well watered, and then I'll just have a look underneath until I see little seedlings appear. And then as soon as the seedlings appear, I will then take them away. Basically, because then, you don't want them growing into this, but it's just to aid germination, and we do it with leeks and stuff as well. And something else is, we start a lot of things off indoors and in modules and stuff. So just transplanted some fennel there, that's Florence fennel. But the good thing about starting a lot of things in modules, and also succession planting is very important. So it's really maximising what we do, and for us, what we try and do is in the autumn we have about a target of adding around 5 to 6 centimetres, so a couple of inches of organic matter over the top as a mulch over the winter to kind of replenish the nutrients.
Right. And then that just settles in, you just plant straight into that.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And so do you make your own compost, or you?
Yeah, we make our own compost, and we're just about to create a new composting system.
Oh, okay, great.
One of the things is looking at gravity. Gravity is very important. So just behind, you can see the trellis. It's slightly downhill. So what we're going to do is build a row of compost bins on the other side, working downhill. So we take the light material up to the top, and then we're going to turn the compost downhill. Yep. And because when compost is ready, it's a lot heavier than the lighter material, it's going to be at the compost bin, which is right next to the gate.
Beautiful.
So it's looking at really, and I think that's a perfect example of permaculture design.
Yep.
So yeah, compost is really important.
So another question I had, just looking at your little garden here, is the mulch. So So some gardens you've got mulch, some you don't. So how's your
Yeah, mulching in the UK is very controversial.
Yes, I know.
Mainly because of slugs.
Yeah. And you had a comment about that earlier.
Yeah, so we have our own way. It was Bill Mollison saying you don't have a snail problem, you have a duck deficiency.
Yes, that's true.
In the UK, it's kind of adjusted so you don't have a slug problem, you have a duck deficiency.
Yeah.
And we really believe that. So a lot of people ask, how are you mulching with grass and stuff? Don't you have slug problems? But what we do is we have a flock of about 6 ducks, and they come in a few mornings every week, and we always get them in quite early because that's when there's dew on the grass, when there's moisture, and that's when the slugs are out. So they just come along and clear the slugs, which is great.
Do you have any particular type of ducks that do that?
Yeah, Khaki Campbells.
Right. Okay.
So and they're great multi-purpose birds as well for eating eggs.
Yeah.
But yeah, so these are just grass clippings, great at retaining moisture. Yeah. We actually grow. We use inspired by Ruth Stout. Yep. She did hay, using spent hay.
Yes.
So we actually grow potatoes in hay as well,
okay, right.
which is really amazing. And I did it last year, and there were just some new potatoes that I had spare, and I didn't water them once, and they didn't get any water for 3 months anyway because of the drought.
Yeah.
And I've never tasted such flavourful potatoes. Yeah.
Fantastic! What an excellent experiment.
But this is perpetual spinach coming through, and so we're taking the lighter leaves, and what we might do, we've got enough plants, you need about 8 to save seed. So this was actually cropping really well last year, has overwintered and is coming back. Right. But yeah, it's a really good source of greens, especially during the hungry gap.
That's right.
Do you have the hungry gap?
We don't have a hungry gap, no. Actually, the hungry gap is probably more in the hotter seasons because it's when it's harder to grow things. So, but yeah, not quite the same, no. Yeah. It's a whole different way of gardening.
It is, yeah. It's one of the things is, even though we do have limitations of frost and stuff, so many vegetables are extremely hardy anyway, and it's trying to get that understanding across, because I find quite often in Facebook groups and stuff, people are like, oh, can I plant my broad beans out yet? Because there's a frost coming. I'm like, they can overwinter and stuff. Yeah. So it's just trying to teach people the different ways, and so broad beans are going in. We don't actually. A lot of people in the UK like to start broad beans in November and keep them in the ground, but we have a vermin problem in terms of mice, which will just come and take them. So we'll only be just a few weeks behind, but we're far better suited starting them off in modules, and then the mice aren't going to be interested. And then another really important thing is, you can't really see that much with the time of year, but perennial vegetables are very, very important. So behind you there's going to be 3 rows of Jerusalem artichokes, so sunchokes. Those are excellent. They produce year on year in the same spot. We also grow ochre, New Zealand yam.
Do you? Right.
Yeah, in tyres. Those grow really well. Rhubarb is coming through as well.
Any other perennial, like leafy green type of plants?
Not too much.
No, okay.
No.
It's more the
I would almost say that things like kale are our perennial leafy greens because they produce right through the year.
Yeah. How long would they last for, do you think?
So basically we'll still harvest until the end of April, but you can start them off early and pick baby green kales and kale in April.
And what have you got going on here in front of
This
us?
is propagation. So this is one of the things which really got me into growing food, was how easy it is to propagate soft fruit.
Yeah, right.
So we've got black currants, red currants, white currants and gooseberries as well, and loganberries, silverberries, blackberries, so many different berries like that. But yeah, these are just propagation, so we just heel them in, just use a spade, slot them in, let them grow a season, and then we'll dig them up and just give them away to people or plant them elsewhere.
So who do you give them away to? Just people who come to
Yeah,
workshops? Or?
usually like friends or something as well. And that's the great thing is, the great thing about perennials is they're actually very low maintenance. So even if someone doesn't or has the excuse of not having the time to grow food,
or not saying, you're saying, oh, I'm not a gardener.
yeah, if you give them a perennial, very easy to look after, and they'll get a really nice tasty snack. So what I found actually, the red currants in the corner here, even though it's very shady, they produce really well.
That's great.
So that's really good. Next thing I've got to sort out is I've got to try and crack growing asparagus, because we did a planting, but we're using kind of dodgy crowns when we planted them, which failed. But that's another thing. It is looking at increasing our ratio of. We've got quite a low ratio of perennials, so it's trying to increase that as well.
Yeah, great. And you got chickens too, I saw?
Yeah, we've got chickens, and then every other year we get 3 pigs in as well.
Do you? Okay.
So the
and
pigs,
where do you keep your pigs?
they're on the other side. They're not this year, but next year they're the other side of the garden.
Right. Okay.
So what we do is when we're cleaning things, we just chuck over. And and their manure has been excellent for growing potatoes actually.
Yeah, right.
That we found.
So that whole idea of relative location in the the permaculture principles.
Yeah. One thing that I love is looking at chicken composting kind of setups.
Yeah.
So there's some space at the top of the garden which I'm looking at. It would be really cool using the same principle where you can just throw things over the fence to the chickens and sort them out.
We've got a system where it's on our main pathway between our house and where we park our car, and we walk up past the chickens, and then the chickens, it's got all the hay in it, and we throw all the scraps into there and into the mulch, and then they poo in that, and then we scratch it straight out a door into a compost, and the compost gets tumbled over, and then that goes straight into the vegetable garden, all that slope. And so that chicken slope, accessibility, relative location, it makes so much sense. It makes life easy, doesn't it?
It does,
really.
It does.
Yeah. So what else have you got planted in here?
There's a lot of we've got potatoes which are hiding. They haven't come through yet. So potatoes in that bed at the end and the other bed there. Those are always a crop that we like to grow, even though they're really cheap to buy in a store. The flavour is pretty bad. So this is one of the kind of less fertile beds, but we've got spring onions that I've just transplanted, peas for pea shoots, Mitsuna.
Peas for pea shoots. This is interesting because I've been really seeing many people doing this in Australia, but both you and Charles have both said, oh, we've got this pea shoot spot.
Yeah.
And people go and buy them in the shops, but I've never seen really people growing them very much like that.
There's a better example in the solar tunnel where they're over triple the size of this.
Yeah, right.
But then, we've got onions, and I've interplanted radish with the onions as well. But just really looking forward, because in about a month or two this is just going to be so green and full, and this is going to be where the squash and all the courgettes and everything are going to go in.
Fantastic.
And what we've also done is, so I've got a whole row of potatoes in here, and then this is where the runner beans are going.
Do you have different sorts of potatoes that you grow? Or?
Yeah, we always we never really stick to the same varieties. We just try out new things and really enjoy experimenting. And if it's like peas or beetroot or anything there, or carrots, brassicas, there are dozens of different varieties.
Yeah, great.
And then if one grows really well, we'll just make a little note and say, we're going to try that again.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Excellent. That's fantastic. So, what would you recommend to other people, young people, who are, you know, maybe looking at diving into being into permaculture, into gardening as a way of life? Because I think a lot of people don't think that it's an option. They kind of think it might just be a nice hobby or something that I could do, you know, just you know, on the weekends or, you know, holidays, but not actually think of it as a way of life and a livelihood.
Yeah, of course. I mean, there are loads of permaculture villages springing around the place, and you know all about things like that. So there's, I think the biggest problem across the world is access to land. But there are loads of different schemes that are out there to get access. And also what I feel is a really good way of obtaining land, especially if you're in a suburban area. In the UK, gardening is kind of getting there. It's definitely becoming more on trend. But if you compare it to other countries like Slovenia, almost everyone has an amazing back garden, growing abundance of food. We're not there yet in the UK. And a lot of people do have that excuse of, oh, I can't be bothered to look after it. So you need to find the people who have a back garden but they can't be bothered to look after it, and say that if you let me garden or grow some food in there, I'll give you a veg box every week.
Perfect.
And it, you know, it's again looking at that idea of bartering and telling people that it's okay to do that.
Perfect. I'm
so
really
that's what
looking
I'd say.
forward to your next book as well.
Thank you.
This sounds brilliant. I mean, I think it's so along the lines of the things that we do need to create. I mean, you know, as a consumer society, we're just ending up wasting so much, and we kind of work an enormous amount of time to earn a heap amount of money to do things that we could actually just very much do in a local community exchange way. And I think, you know, in terms of creating resilient, sustainable societies, this is kind of the direction that we need to head. Yeah,
it's kind of almost the race to the bottom as well, because time is the most important thing, and I don't understand why people are doing jobs that they hate and they just live for Friday night and then they dread Monday, and I just couldn't do that. And permaculture is one of those things where there's a great diversity, and diversity is key in permaculture, but there's also diversity in your life and livelihood, and I think that is also really important.
So through your YouTube and the things that you're doing, have you had letters from other people, young people, to say, you've really inspired me, Huw, to take this path as well? Yeah,
it's at school there's a couple of other younger people who have YouTube channels now. One of which he came on a course. He's called Owen from The Welsh Gardener, so give him a subscribe. But you know, he's great, and there is, I think, a growing interest with young people, because we're not really taught about the story of food, and when kids aren't taught about the story of food, you have all the problems such as food waste, because they don't understand the energy that's needed. So kids are kind of being more detectives these days and trying to find out these things, and then suddenly realise they can grow peas or strawberries or something. And I also really love it when I get pictures of people saying, like grandparents who, there's quite a few grandparents who've bought my book to get their grandkids involved as like a project.
Fantastic.
I think that's absolutely amazing.
That's brilliant, isn't it? It's wonderful. Anything that does inspire and engage people, and particularly young people, to take this on, so that either whatever it is that they're doing in their life, that this is part of it, whether it be the main part or, you know, a small part, but it's definitely there.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much for your time.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Much.
So it's been an absolute delight to meet Huw today in his garden here in West Wales. Don't forget to subscribe to Our Permaculture Life for more great site visits and meeting some wonderful, wonderful permaculture people.